try to play your PMC as much as possible because I played my first wipe. I played a lot of Scav Reserve because that was like everyone was like, "Oh, go Reserve Scav to make money." And I was like, "Okay." Oh, a paracord? Anyways. So but that really kind of hurt me because then when I was playing Reserve with some of my buddies, I was like really lost on where people were. You know what I mean? Like the flow of the map. Because I was used to like the scav flow, which is very like, let me move methodically from building to building, grabbing loot as I go. And I have all these extracts open to me. Whereas on, PMC, it's limited. I guess maybe interchange in your case, it's not that different. But the biggest thing you can learn is the spawns and where people are, the hot spots, where people are going to go. That's if you can learn that, then you got like 70% of the gameplay. Honestly,
I think that's like, yeah. I think I do agree with you. I feel.
Welcome to ScavTalk, an Escape from Tarkov podcast with a focus on theory crafting, gameplay discussion, and keeping up with the development of the game. I'm one of your hosts, Church.
And I'm your other host, GigaBeef.
And welcome to the show.
All right.
So, Giga, how you been, man?
I've been good.
In a minute.
I've been good. Yeah, we were just saying, like, just before we started that we hadn't actually spoken that much before doing this one. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be a little bit more, I don't know, ad hoc, I suppose. But yeah, I was just saying about like all the different. I just keep having issues with random things. This is the problems with having a new PC. But I've got like this ridiculous setup where like my new box is on top of my old box. I've got nowhere to put the old box, and it's like I've got the mic's like stretched all the way over from the side. It's like pinned. It's like almost as far as it can go on its like stretch mount and stuff. And then every time I change anything, I have to unplug everything. That's why like the microphone was disconnected, and it wasn't giving any sound. Anyway, it's all good. It's all good. But yeah, things have been going okay. Things have been going okay. How about you?
Pretty good. I wanted to ask you, what's life being like a dad? How's it going, man? How old's the little one now?
She is 4.5 months now. She's doing well. She's doing well. I would say the first bit for me especially was very, very difficult, and they don't give much back, because you just have to feed them and they just do their thing. But I think it was the point where she started smiling and like giving something back. Then it gets a bit better, and also. I think the start's hard because you just don't know anything. It's a bit like starting in like a new job or something, right? Where like everything you try to do, you don't know how to do anything. You have to like ask on anything. And after a while you go, okay, well, we've got into, understand what this is, understand this. And you get like a firm like base, and then you build on it. And that's the good thing. So I'd say after like 1 month, it got a lot easier because we were just mentally, it's not like there's nothing difficult about it really. It's just like, it's very, very time consuming, and you're on this regime, and my wife does a fantastic job because she looks after her like most of the time. But you're kind of just like on this cycle, and it's tough because you have to go with their rhythm, and when they need something, you just have to go and do it, and that's it. But once you then can kind of anticipate when things need to happen, I think because before around like the feeding and stuff, we just had like no idea when, or trying to read how do you like read on a baby's face whether it's like hungry or whether it needs a toilet or like nappy change or like food or whatever. And after a while you kind of get an idea of like when they might want to eat next and that kind of thing. Because at first it's just like, how often does a baby even eat? It's a bit random, but yeah, it's good. It's really good. I mean, she looks like a little person now rather than just kind of like a baby. I mean, she's still very small.
Yeah.
She's actually quite a little baby. She's like the 30th percentile, so she's dinky, but she's very sweet, and it's going good. We've got into a good rhythm, so I'm happy about it. It's all very, very good.
I can't imagine being a parent. I would be like terrified of doing something wrong, and then B, I would probably just Google like every little thing, like why is the crying higher pitch this time? What does that mean?
Yeah, I think it is bad nowadays. Now that we have the internet, like you can kind of WebMD your way to worry. I'm the one that try to kind of like try to still like chill out a bit more, and my wife's always a bit more kind of like looking out for stuff. But sometimes she's right, and sometimes I'm right to just like chill out. So it's a good balance. But yeah, it's not easy, and you don't know what the right thing to do is most of the time. You just have to like look at everything and just like make your best judgment and go with it. Yeah, it's fun though. It is fun. It is fun. It definitely is fun. But yeah, I mean, I think the timing thing is probably the biggest thing for me. It's just like so all encompassing, and I think especially like if one parent is kind of looking after more than the other, then it's like any sort of downtime, you're like trying to balance between doing this and then like speaking to my friends from home and and seeing her and being with us as a family. And in some ways that's been made easier because of the lockdown. Like I know the situation around the world's like in different places, but like here in the UK we've been locked down forever, and we're still in lockdown now, and we're going to be locked down for another couple of months too, it seems.
That's great.
Because they kind of screwed it up once. And
do you work from home?
Yeah,
Unless that's something you want to talk about.
I do. Okay. Yeah, I don't really talk about my job, but I do work from home, so
okay. Well, I figured you'd have to since you're in lockdown. I can't imagine.
Yeah, there's like people are going into work and stuff. You can go to work, but it's if you can work away, then you should, kind of thing.
I see.
Yeah, it's a funny situation, but in some ways that's kind of made it a bit easier because you don't have like a billion people coming around and all this kind of stuff. So
yeah, definitely. And then you get to help out with the little one too.
Yeah,
I'm sure your wife's really happy about.
Yeah. No, it's much better for that. It's much better for that. It'd be horrible otherwise, actually.
A blessing in disguise.
Exactly.
Sure.
But yeah, so what have you been up to?
Not much. I started getting back into Tarkov, man. I was just like, I played DayZ, and it was an experience, and I can appreciate it. But I definitely started appreciating Tarkov more, and I was like, man, just the fact that you can load into range, just be in the action is like, because they took I feel like Tarkov, they took that DayZ aspect where like you're in the military sector of the map, and it's like really tense because there's like other people want to go there too. They like took that and just scaled it to the Tarkov gameplay. And I've been actually, I made an effort to start learning Reserve, and I've been streaming that because that's also kind of helped me play Tarkov. Is streaming. I don't know, just otherwise I just kind of get bored too easily. But it's been fun. It's been fun. Definitely learning very quickly where the spawns are on Reserve. Very quickly, I'm learning where they are.
That's good. I've heard a lot of stuff about the Reserve spawns. I've actually never been spawn killed on Reserve, which might surprise a lot of people.
Really?
Yeah, I've never been spawn killed on Reserve, and I don't really know why that is. I'm sort of like broadly aware where the spawns are. I wouldn't say Reserve is like my best map, but I kind of know where they are. I've definitely been killed like within 30 seconds. That's like something that has happened, but it's never just been like I load in and the text is still on the screen and my head's been blown off. It's never been quite like that. So
yeah, I can't say I've had that happen. Definitely within 30 seconds though. I've fought someone or actively was looking to shoot at someone at their spawn.
Okay, fine. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. And that's good that you've been enjoying Tarkov on stream. It's funny because like back when I used to play PUBG, I only used to play with my friends like exclusively, and I used to I like used to try a bit of solo every now and then, and I just found it really boring. I just didn't like to play it. And it's weird because like Tarkov plays so well as a solo player a lot of the time. There's like the other guy who I used to play with a lot, from kind of like my real life friends. He like we ended up just like hanging out in Discord and playing separately because like so many of the quests it's just like you end up tripping over each other, right? You both got to try and get PMC kills, you both got to try and get scav kills and stuff. And it's like it doesn't necessarily help to have two of you, and you're trying to coordinate with each other and stuff. So it's quite interesting because like now I find it, I don't know, like I actually really like playing solo, but I also really love playing solo on stream with chat. It's so good, right? Because you've got like a ton of people just like watching over your shoulder, and like some people, I've said this on stream before, like some people hate people just like backseat gaming. I think a lot of people complain about backseat gaming, but genuinely I would miss loads of stuff. Like my chat helps me so much, and I really don't mind. Like if people want to give me suggestions about where to go, like I don't have to do it, right? They're not controlling my keyboard, so if they say something and I don't like it, I'll just not do that. it normally happens when people are just like, this is the fastest way out of interchange, and I'm just like, I don't know the map well enough, and we're going to talk about this, but and I'm just like, I'm going to have to go the route that I know out, otherwise I'm going to die because I don't know the other way, even if it's faster or if it's safe or whatever. Like I don't know it, so I can't do it. But before we jump fully into Tarkov, I just wanted to very briefly talk
Yes, please.
about what I've been up to mostly this week, which has actually been playing a bit of Valheim, which is
Valheim.
yeah, the one that everybody's playing. It's this like Viking
Oh,
survival type
yeah.
game, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
it's been quite fun because my real life friends have got a server for it. I've probably played like a fifth of as much as everyone else. I've just kind of like jumped in and just like had a mess around kind of thing, and it's good. It's always good to like revisit these kind of like survivally routes. It's like Minecraft had a baby with the forest, is the way I would describe it for people who've played both of those games. Because it kind of like plays out like the forest, but like not scary, because the forest is very scary, and Valheim's kind of like a toned down version of that. But like Minecraft, like you do the beginning of the game and then there's no threat anymore at all. And it's just completely sandbox and just up to you entirely. Whereas like Valheim's a bit more like, you go to the next crafting thing and like this is how you build up to the next thing. And Minecraft's a little bit like that, but this is a lot more structured. It's just like, you go through stone stuff into bronze things into iron things, that kind of thing. And there's like different biomes where different things happen, and it's quite carefully designed. And there's like somebody wrote on Twitter, I think, that basically like it feels that the developers of that game played like every other survival game and have played a lot of them and put all of the good stuff from all of the different ones into one game. They didn't really do anything new, but they just packaged it all together really nicely into one game, and it's just like really satisfying. And
Interesting.
that's really, that's true. And I think it's worth checking out. I think it's good. I think it's good fun. It's been a good blast, at least. It's got nice progression. It's kind of like that thing of, there's like micro objectives to try and achieve all the time, so you kind of always know what you're trying to do next, and so it like compels you to keep playing. This is why people are complaining about like, they're just like, oh, what's this, another survival game? And then it's like 4 a.m. and the like sun's coming up outside the curtain, and they're like, oh god, I got to work in 2 hours, that kind of thing. It seems to be a little bit like that. So I've been having fun with it. I think it's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's been good.
One of my buddies, he in the Discord when he posted a like video on Scum, and I was like, oh, I remember this game, because it's like another like shooter looter like survival game.
Yeah.
And then we just went down this rabbit hole of like all these other games that are like in development, like Dead Side and Dead Matter.
I've not played it. Yeah.
Which I got those two confused. I didn't realize there was a difference between the two, because they literally have the same name, basically. And I was just kind of like, wow, there's a lot of games that are like trying to break out in this genre, this whole like shooter looter survival aspect.
Yeah, I think there's just like there's so much that you can do in it, and you can take things right from like the survival-y kind of end through to the hardcore end, through to the shooter end. It's just like there's lots of like elements of the game that you can like put more or less of. There's like the whole building thing, which is in most survival games. Is obviously not in Tarkov, because Tarkov's not really a survival game, so to speak. It's like a shooter with survival elements, I would argue.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's cool. I mean, I do like those games, and yeah, they predominantly stem from that kind of like Daisy kind of feel, but it's good. It's good to check them out once in a while. I normally like, I don't know, I'm like the complete opposite of like somebody who goes on the Steam sale and buys everything. I'm just like the complete opposite. I play like one game for like 4 years, which is basically how I ended up like doing this. It's just like played Dota for like 4 years, and then I've been playing Tarkov for like 2.5 years or something, and I'm just like I'm such a specialist. I can't even help myself. Like I'm just such a specialist.
But I mean, when you find a good game, it's just like you're just compelled to keep playing it. That's
exactly. So, all right. So what I want to talk about, and you kind of alluded to it as well, which is quite good, I think, to lead us into the discussion, is around learning new maps in Tarkov. And I think this is it can be as general as like learning the game as a new player, plus going to try something different as an experienced player, because there's a lot of maps, right? And people have vastly different rankings in terms of like which ones they like to play, and it really seems to depend on kind of like which ones you took a liking to when you were kind of like growing up in the game kind of thing, and then at some point you just kind of stop playing certain maps outside of doing some of the quests. And for me, that map is Interchange by a long way. And I don't know, I don't mind. I can scav on interchange and do some bits and pieces. Like, I even put video up about some loot runs on interchange because
Yep,
like
I
the
remember that
outside
video.
bit is, the caches and all that
Yep.
stuff. Like I can do that. That's just fine. But man, I've got to go and kill Killer and take his helmet. And it is probably the quest that I fear the most out of all of them. And I find the central section of the mall so hard. It's so confusing. My sense of direction isn't that great anyway, and I actually rely a lot on like landmarks, which is why I tend to play a lot outside. Like resorts are not too bad because it's all in like one line, so it's very hard to get yourself kind of mixed up.
Hmm.
But I find interchange awful. It just like everything that I'm not good at, it just like hits all of those points, and I basically just want to get better at it. And I spend a bit of time on stream trying to go and do the killer quest. And I was like, yeah, well, just got loads of money from bitcoins and stuff. I'll just take like loads of good gear, and basically just like donated like 6 hex grids in a row to people in interchange. And that was kind of like the crux of it. It was just kind of like, if you're learning a new map, even if you're an experienced player and you have the kit, like, should you bother taking that stuff? It just feels kind of dumb to waste it, right? If you're going to just like
It
die to
does.
one shot
Yeah.
from someone that you don't even see them, right? Because and this is the point. If when I'm playing interchange, it feels so much more like the beginning of the game to me than other maps because I don't know where the angles are. I
Yes.
don't know really where other people are going to be just because I'm not used to it.
Yep.
And I get shot out of nowhere without knowing where I was shot from way more on interchange than any other map, just because I don't know it. And so even if you can afford to, right, it feels like, yeah, as I said, it feels like kind of stupid to just like take a load of kit in because half the time, like, it literally makes no difference because I'm just going to die anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your take is on it.
No, I agree. I mean, I think that listen, gear and Tarkov and good ammo. Ammo is maybe the most important thing, but uh, nothing's gonna beat knowledge in this game, in my opinion. So when I would say if you're trying to learn a new map, absolutely go for budget, like budget builds, something to min max, because you're going you're you're clueless. And interchange, I remember when I first started playing the game, a buddy of mine loved interchange, and I was scared shitless of that map. But I was basically forced to learn it because that's the only map he wanted to play. So I learned interchange. And
Yeah.
part of the thing with interchange, especially, is there's like a certain flow to the map. Like depending on where you spawn, you know where other spawns are. So you know kind of like where the hotspots are, where people are gonna like travel. And because the map is like a giant 8 track almost, like once you're inside the mall, like it's just like a bunch of squares that like touch each other, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're walking through as a new player, you're freaking out because you're thinking, not even a new player, just someone learning the map. You're thinking that someone's sitting in literally every store. So you don't know, like you're like scanning every store, every corner. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I remember when I was first learning it, I was definitely doing that. I was like scared shitless that there's going to be someone in every store I was walking past.
I kind of know what you mean. I do know what you mean. I feel like I end up sort of going the other way with it though. Like especially now, I think
Hmm.
like as a new player, I definitely was like that and just like would creep around the edge and like never even really go into the center because it's just like so scary and you just feel so exposed.
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm on the other end of just like playing the other maps and knowing how I should feel on the other maps and being almost probably a bit I don't know, like blasé about it and just being like,
Hmm.
well, like I can't reasonably be expected to check all this stuff because there's just too many angles. There's so many angles to check out. And
Yeah.
the funny thing is, like, yeah, most of the time when you're wandering around, like, unless it's right near the start and you're going for like the killer areas, most of the time you can wander around inside and not see anybody. Like, unless you're like under tech light or something. So it gives you that sort of false sense of security as well sometimes when you're just like, well, I can wander around some of the outside bits, like some of the non-hot bits, and like not really see anybody too much. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh god, there was actually a hilarious moment which I'm still figuring out like what format to put it into. I was like thinking about putting it up on Twitter just as like a little clip or something, just like put a meme
Hmm.
in it at the end. Because I'm just like looting this body. You can just hear out my like left ear, you can just hear this all clonking on one of the escalators. And then you just hear this out of the corner, and I stand up, and there's literally 5 dudes running down the down the
Oh
corridor at me.
no.
I just like spray with my M4, clip the first guy in the face, and like run to the side. And then firing at the second guy, I managed to escape because I think like they were so confused. There was like so many of them that it's actually very difficult to catch a solo player when you don't know who's who. But I was just like, oh my god. But yeah, so things like that happen, and it's you can hear people from quite far away actually if you're wearing headphones on interchange. And there's like it's even just like stupid stuff, like some of the shops have like wood flooring, and I like take one step in and I'm just like, everybody just heard that. Oh god. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's one of those funny things, right? And this is, I think, there's something that maybe like new players don't realize so much. It's like gear when you're new doesn't really matter at all, because you're going to die really quickly to people who know the maps, know the angles, like hear you slash see you coming before you do, and then just kill you. And so it's one of those things, right? Like I don't advocate taking in no kit, but I think you should take in something that's like, you know, ruthlessly min-maxed in that way, so you can still kill other people. That's why I recommend the hunter a lot. I'm actually slowly changing my mind on that, by the way. I'm changing it over to something like the RFB, but I'm not sure. That's for another time.
Ooh, I love that.
Maybe I don't know. I'm still
I also kind of think the RFB is a little bit more of an attractive offer, but
yeah, like it's a little bit more expensive, but the biggest problem with the hunter, and it's something that like, because I talk a lot to people in my comments, because I find that I kind of stopped taking it as criticism and just like try to absorb as much knowledge out of the comments as I can, right? Because like, you know, yeah, I spend a lot of time thinking about Tarkov rant, but I'm just one dude ultimately at the end of the day. Whereas like the people who watch my stuff, you get like hundreds of comments from people, and you get loads of different perspectives. And sometimes people say stuff that you just haven't thought of. And normally I'm thinking about it from my perspective, and I'm just like, oh, well, you know, the hunter's great and it's got like 5 and 10 round mags and stuff. And a lot of people are just like, well, you can't buy those, right? And they're really expensive on the fleet, so it kind of sucks. You can't buy the 10 rounders. With the RFB, you can get like 20s, like straight off the bat. I'm like, okay, so I'm like slowly changing my mind. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like the gear matters once you already kind of know what you're doing, and then you're in like a fair fight with somebody else who's like equally skilled. And that's the point at which the gear then makes a difference. It's like, it's funny because like playing a map that you know, like it just feels like such a world of difference. Like going on to customs as a scav with like a Kedda and a level 3 armor and running around there feels so different to turning up on customs with like a level 5 rig and a face shield, right? Like I play differently. I play a lot more probably fast and loose with my PMC than I do with my scav in some ways, because it depends. Like even firefights anyway, I can kind of just you know, push the go button and just like over people because the gear allows you to do that. Whereas on interchange, because I'm, you know, much closer to a new player on interchange than I am an experienced player, it's like, it's quite like, you know, what I recommend other people to do, which is like, don't just take in your best gear, just take in stuff that allows you to run lots of different raids. And I was like, well, I will just compensate for my lack of experience just with all this gear, you know, with a ton of gear instead. And yeah, as I said, I basically just ended up like donating 600,000 rubles worth of gear to people like 6 raids in a row, because I just don't have that experience to hold up, and it's the experience that's more important than the gear. So I guess like the next question that you kind of have to ask yourself then is like, if you do actually want to learn such a map, like how do you go about doing it? Because I find it very difficult to motivate myself to go to interchange, and it's quests like these that make me go, because a lot of the quests in interchange, you don't actually really have to kill anyone or go to the hot areas. You go like picking up books and like checking out like, you know, textile stores and like random stuff like this, whereas like the kill killer and get his helmet quest is like, you got to go right into the eye, you know, right into the center and go and rip stuff up. And I've had some quite fun fights in there, to be perfectly honest with you. It's actually been okay. Like I've kind of been alternating between like the MDR, the M4 and the MP7. And I actually saw killer. This is a mistake that I won't make twice. Like last time I did it with the MP7, I got incredibly lucky, and I was like, I'll just do it again. So I just turned up with the MP7 with FMJ and hit him like 8 times in the chest, and then he shot me. I was like, I should have taken the good stuff. Yeah, I should have taken the APSXs.
They buffed them too since that time.
Yeah, so it's actually a lot harder. It's a lot harder than when I first did that, and I kind of was like, "This is very borderline, and I don't know if I should." But I had the kit already on me, and I was like, rather than just like redo everything, let's just do it. Like maybe we kill another PMC or something, because the MP7's actually been working out really well for me recently, and I thought we'll just go and try it, and yeah, I got dinged by him. So I was like, fine, let's go big bullets. But I don't really like I'm not really a semi-auto person, and
Mhm.
so I was like, right, we'll do the MDR instead. But yeah, had some like other good fights with people and kept getting shot. But it's like it's interesting. It's like it's difficult because you have to go for it, and you want to give yourself like the best chance that you can without like breaking the bank and making sure that you can actually run that kit
Yeah.
a number of times without worrying too much. And I think like for me, it's quite useful just to like have a load of stuff set up because it's actually, I mean, this is going to be like a Tarkov first world problem, but for me, it's more like the time of like assembling these kits than it is about the actual cash. Because like by the time you got the Bitcoin farm up and you're running, I mean, I say this every single podcast, but like you get 2 million rubles a day, right? And if you don't play an awful lot in the week, like I said, I've played a little bit less Tarkov this week. It's been playing Valheim with the guys. But you basically like go from one weekend to the next, and you're just like, okay, well, if I don't play for you know 2 or 3 days, but I carry on collecting all my stuff, I've got 6 million, right? And it's just like
Right,
it's
you
just
have all that
insane. It's just an
cash
insane
adding
amount of
up.
money. So
Yeah.
and so then it's just like it doesn't really matter about the kits if you run like a couple of raids a day kind of thing, and
Yeah.
more about just like, okay, well, I want to change over to the M4 now. I've got to like take off this and put this on and put this and change my secure container over and blah blah blah. Especially like, even changing maps. If you want to take paracord with you for reserve and this kind of thing, like changing around stuff, I'm doing less and less. I feel like as time goes on, I'm being more specific. So like if I'm going to learn interchange, I'm going to play it like 10 times in a row with the same kit, with the same gear, and try and be nice and consistent about it,
Yeah.
and go in and sort of like learn those pathways. I think that's one thing that I'm still trying to figure out is like the route from the spawns into the center, which is like I kind of like obviously like I know it broadly speaking, but it's like the minutiae around like when are you most likely to actually hit someone else? Where are they going to be? Which angles are they going to be looking at? Like it's those kind of things that I'm trying to work on, and I'm finding quite this is tough. It's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, to sort of give my thoughts and answer your question, I think you should try to play more on your PMC as often as possible because you will like I think you need to accept that you're going to die. I mean, because like we've already established, you don't know the angles, you don't know the routes, how people where the spawns are. So just accept you're gonna die. So bring in a budget kit. B, try to do your homework. I think Vox E did a video very recently on interchange spawns, which I thought was a really good video. So check that out, Giga,
I
because
think
it actually was a good
I'll
video.
go check it out. I actually will check that out for sure.
Yeah. That helps a ton because now you can find the routes where either you want to avoid or you're going to be at least conscious of where people potentially are going to be running with you. Because honestly, in my opinion, from my experience, I don't get a lot of spawn fights on interchange. It's typically more so at the hotspots where people rush. And that's sort of the big thing about interchange this wipe is interchange is like the money map. Like it's way more profitable than any other map.
Yeah.
Like labs is not profitable at all. But because the Bitcoin farm, the Tetris, like whatever you get, you can just those two items alone, if you put them
And
in your container,
the fuel situation,
fuel
right?
even,
Ollie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So interchange is the map for money. So a lot of people are rushing spawns. I guess that's a little specific to this map, but
Yeah, I
I
kind of
would
agree
say
with you on
too,
spawns though. Like I haven't been spawn killed so far.
and I would say too that try to play your PMCs as much as possible because I played my first wipe. I played a lot of Scav Reserve because that was like everyone was like, "Oh, go reserve
Mm.
Scav to make money." And I was like, "Okay." Oh, a paracord? Anyways. So, but that really kind of hurt me because then when I was playing reserve with some of my buddies, I was like really lost on where people were. You know what I mean? Like the flow of the map because I
Mm.
was used to like the scav flow, which is very like let me move methodically from building to building, grabbing loot as I go, and I have all these extracts open to me. Whereas on, um, PMC, it's limited. I guess maybe interchange in your case, it's not that different. But the biggest thing you can learn is the spawns and where people are the hotspots, where people are gonna go. That's if you can learn that, then you got like 70% of the gameplay. Honestly.
I think that's like, yeah, I think I do agree with you. I feel one reason why I find Interchange so tricky is because I find that like some of the other maps have like kind of more of a set map flow in them. Like the
Mhm.
beginning bit always kind of plays out in one particular way, which is kind of okay. And like I'm figuring it out. There's it's just something that you just got to like play a bunch and just like one
Uh-oh.
area, and then these ones aren't. Hmm?
Oh, you froze for a
We good?
second. You're back now.
We good? Okay, okay.
Something froze,
Um,
yeah.
okay. But yeah, no, like you kind of like after a bit, you just like, yeah, I know which ones are close to the killer spawn areas, that kind of thing. I know how I'm gonna,
Mhm.
get in and that kind of stuff. But then it's like after that first 5 minutes, I find interchange very very strange because like people can be upstairs and downstairs, and there's so many angles. There's like quite a lot of like open like upstairs downstairs fights, and people can get like crazy overlook on certain like rooms and buildings and that kind of thing. Whereas on a map like customs, you just don't really have that, right? People tend to like traverse through the map in like quite a methodical way, I would say. Like you kind of know where to expect people broadly. Um,
Yeah.
whereas like because interchange is kind of so as you said, like a bunch of squares connected. It's not just like, oh
Mhm.
well, someone's going to be in crack house, or someone's going to be up on like the construction building, or someone's going to be
Mhm.
in the gas station or whatever. There's kind of like these set hotspots which are like disconnected by the paths between these hotspots. Whereas like
Yes.
I find interchange is just a bit weird. I mean, it still has those hotspots, but it's kind of got like all these extra angles too, because it is like I would argue it is a more complicated map in that respect, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's like you took parts of another map because like it's weird, right? If you think about it, like conceptually, having like multiple stories is almost like stacking bits of the map on top of each other like this,
Right.
and so it's almost
Right.
like having like, I mean, this is going to be a really strange analogy, but it's almost a bit like a wormhole. It's like if you
Mhm.
took customs and then you said, oh well, customs the map is like going to have some weird wormhole on it, so you can like, oh look, you can look through and you can shoot people on the in the USEC building from Big Red, right? Whereas like interchange is like that because it's like you can be in one place and someone could be like all the way up here and they can see you and shoot at you. I don't know. Maybe I'm just my mind's blown just by buildings. Who knows? But I find it's just like that sort of three-dimensional element, the fact that people can be kind of all over the place, and it's a minefield for me, honestly.
It's well, see, what's interesting is it kinda goes both ways, the way the map, because how I think about the map, recently I thought about this, is it kinda reminds me of a classic CS:GO map like Dust 2, and I hope people are familiar with Dust 2 because it's a great map, but it's essentially 3 lanes, right? You got the mid lane, and that connects to B site and A site, which B site would be left and A site would be right. And they all connect, but it's basically 3 lanes, and mid kinda like is the bridge between both lanes. And interchange has a lot of that. So say you're at Kiba and Killa's in Brutal, which Brutal is like that, I don't know, it's like the room he's always in most of the time in that little corner right
Mm,
across from Kiba. And you could, in theory, go all the way around and flank and wrap on them. You could like go back towards the hole in the ground and
like
go.
to the
You
right, and then
you could go to the right. You could go to the left. You could even go underground and go all the way to like, I don't know, Goshen side, and go up the Goshen escalators and then be in Goshen and then come through tents and then run down. There's like all these like flank routes,
yeah,
which makes the You it that's the part I personally, because that's kinda like my play style is I like to flank. If I'm, like, if I'm getting shot at or if I'm fighting someone, I wanna, like, get a different angle on them from, like, a better position they're not gonna expect? So it really plays into my play style, and interchange really has a nice aspect to that. Like, say someone's upstairs shooting down at you, assuming you're not stuck in a store, you could take one of the many routes to get upstairs. You could go up the main escalators. You could go back to Ollie, go up those escalators by Tech Light. You could even go near furniture near Ollie, there's
Mhm.
like these double doors. We call them Ollie's secret, and you can go in like this secret area and go up this staircase and come up on the second floor. Like there's just tons of like options for flanking, which is part of the beauty of the map for me, anyways.
Yeah, see, I think that's the thing is like the map is just quite complicated, and I just don't know that well. And I think there's I don't know.
Yes.
I think there might be a temptation. I'm sure other people have a similar experience who don't like interchanges of being like playing it as a scav, knowing
Hmm.
the areas like outside, as they said, and knowing kind of like because that's the thing, right? It's like I know that Ollie, the sort of like the back of Goshan, and
Hmm.
kind of like those warehouses bits like really well
Yeah.
because I've run them a million times,
Yes.
and I know the bit kind of like around the hole and the kibber, like just that bit, really, to be honest with you. And then outside of that,
Hmm.
like some of like there's that back stairs. I don't know if you're talking about the same one, but there's like that staircase. It's like an actual real set of stairs. It like goes around twice.
Yes, and it spirals
Yeah,
up, sort
like
of.
genuinely, I couldn't tell you exactly where that is on the map. Like this is the
Yes.
thing, right? It's about learning those maps like in depth. But I find interchange so
Mhm.
big; it takes a long time to
It
actually
is a big map.
remember it.
It actually is a big map.
And I just like the other maps I've like even if I don't play them that much, I've just kind of like learned it just by like dabbling. But
Mhm.
interchange, like it's not enough. Like I've played interchange a bunch of times and I still don't know half the stuff about it. Like you have to make a conscious effort to go and like probably explore the different areas, I think, and like
Yeah.
make it your mission to go and like, okay, we're going to go to this area or go through here. Because the alternative, I think, is to like go and like wander around in offline mode with the map up and just like figure it out. But
Yeah.
it's kind of boring, right? I'm not sure if I really want to waste my time doing that. It's good
Yeah.
if you're like really new and you're figuring out extracts and stuff. Um,
Sure.
maybe I do it once or twice, but also it's just like interchange is so huge too that it would take you ages to go around and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Because, like you said, it's you got the garage, you got the main floor, and then within that main floor, there's, like, the external warehouses that leads to, like, the outside. Same with the
yeah,
garage, that leads to the outside. And then you
yeah,
got the second floor. Like, there's it's a big map when you think about it.
exactly. I think like out of the whole thing, I think it's the underground section, like the parking section, that actually
Oh,
does cause me the
100%.
most issues. That causes me the most issues
Yes.
by far. It all looks identical, and
Yes.
most of the time I have no idea where I am. And it's just
Yep.
like it's just playing it as PMC is just like such an issue, and like being actually in the
Mhm.
store. But yeah, I mean, like, was it Interchange the first map that you played and learned then?
N Between that and customs, yeah, because like I said, my buddy, he basically forced me to like, if I wanted to play with him, so I was like, "Fine, I'll learn this map." I hated it, but eventually I grew to love it.
Yeah,
But
that's the thing. I want to love Interchange. I do.
yeah, I do feel like it's a bit I find it's a common map that people dislike a lot, and I think just because the learning now that we're talking about it, the learning curve is actually pretty high on it because it is a really big map, and those flanks you can do, like, maybe to me and some other people who've played a ton of Interchange, like, it's, common knowledge or easy, but
Yeah,
when you think about it, it's very complex, like,
yeah,
there's a lot of options you could do. I would
exactly.
I would say the biggest thing, man, if you could learn the hotspots and kinda how especially now, people are just, like, rushing I mean, that's kind of the meta of the game right now, people rush loot. Like,
Mm,
even on reserve, I'm starting to learn certain spawns are just going to beat me there, but I can possibly get a different angle.
yeah.
Like if I spawn up on dome, I know I should look down into drop down room because there's going to be someone jumping into drop down. Like it's guaranteed. It's kind of funny, but
Yeah, I think it's one of those weird things, and like again, it's maybe down to like a little bit of like my weird sort of like economy centric play style, which is that
mhm.
I get accused of like not really looting anything, and again, it's I've never really done like hatchet running of like GPU
Yeah.
rooms or anything like that, and so and then I don't have that kind of like I don't necessarily advocate it, but I don't really have that experience of just like finding the quickest route into Techlight or into Rasmussen or whichever, and like
Mhm.
snagging stuff and then leaving. Like I genuinely have never run raids like that. And when you come in as scav, it's already gone already. So I do the other stuff. I do
Yeah.
the industrial loot and the caches and that kind of thing. And so I just don't have that base of knowledge to do it. And it's like half the time I'm just not. I'm interested in getting into fun fights and learning the map. But I'm not really that interested in the loot most of the time. It's like kind of weird. I don't know. It's like the looter shooter thing, but the Bitcoin situation hasn't helped. Like I wasn't that interested in loot last wipe, and this wipe I'm like completely uninterested. Like I can make more money not playing the game than going in and trying to. I guess you would make more money if you actually went and did it. But you know what I mean? Like you make enough outside. Maybe I
Yeah.
ruined the game for myself by pushing the hideout too much. I don't know. But yeah, it's a weird one. It's a weird one. I'm just like, I don't find myself with the desire to go and rush rooms. I kind of want to go and do kind of fun stuff. And I think this is like what I alluded to last time. And this is what led me on to thinking about talking about this in the first place, is that
Yeah.
this wipe for me is like the self-improvement wipe.
Hmm.
And I've been not, I wouldn't say learning factory, but I've been learning to play aggressively on factory, and
Yeah. That's fair.
it's been an absolute blast, and I've had an amazing time because like I know factory quite well anyway, and it's tiny, right? It's very quick to learn. But I've always played like once I get to a certain amount of money and I'm only playing PMC, I pretty much use my scav when it's off cooldown every time to run factory, because you get in almost instantly. There's no wait, there's no countdown. You just like straight in, and there's going to be somebody either like in the underground, in the forklift area, or up in office, and you can just like shift W straight into somebody and get a firefight for free. And it's just kind of fun. I just like it. And so then playing like that as PMC has been really, really great. And I think like I'm actually going to do like a factory guide soon. It's obviously I'm not like the best player in the world. Right? I'm not.
Hmm.
I'm no kind of like top 100 Punisher factory player, but I think there's definitely value to be had from people who are kind of at my stage of the game, who can kind of like give people tips that, because I don't know, there's like sometimes the stuff that well, a lot of the big streamers don't really do that kind of guide anyway. They're just
For
really
sure.
good, and that's just the way it is. And so there's value there to begin with. And secondly, I can't rely on like shroud like aim, so you have to do other stuff and like kind of get a tactical advantage over people and like get a knowledge advantage and that kind of thing, which is, as you alluded to previously, right, where Tarkov really, really shines. But clearly, I was recording another video and I was just thinking like, well, talking about like head and face armor, it's just like, well, if you hit your headshots, most of the time you're just going to win, right, in this game.
Yeah.
It's not really about shooting, but like if you are really good, then it is, and you'll win all the time. So I don't know. I think there's value in that kind of like experience, sort of like intermediary kind of player, because not everything works for people who aren't like absolutely cracked, But it's been good. It's been good. I started doing it with the end of the Punisher and with the SVD and a few other things, and I've just been kind of like running it a bit more casually to get like the flashbang kills and that kind of thing, and it's been very, very fun. It's been very fun,
I,
and the
I
shotguns too, actually.
I think that makes sense because you went through the whole process. Like you were first to go to the map for quests, right?
Hmm.
So you had to like pull up the map or the YouTube guide or whatever, and you're still like fumbling around. But like eventually you start to learn the spawns, you start to learn like people's
Mhm.
behavior, and then you can apply all that knowledge to like really
Yeah,
pushing yourself to the limits in terms of like your playstyle, the aggressiveness.
exactly. And then you apply the gear on top, and then it's like,
Yes.
right,
And
now I
then you
win most
got
of my
all the
fights. Yeah,
yes. You got everything
yeah,
working in your favor at that
yeah.
point.
But it's almost like, yeah, gear's kind of like the end. It's like the end of the story,
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
little tweak that sort of just turns your game up that little notch. But I mean, the thing is, right, stuff happens. I was in the. It's funny because a lot of people don't really like the forklift spawn, and I was in there and I had somebody on the left hand side, and I looked across and I was like, kind of waiting for them, and I got
Uh-huh.
one tapped by somebody down glass corridor. Who I didn't. I looked. I
Yeah.
checked it. Like I didn't even. I checked it, and I was just like, okay, there's no one there, and I was like, holding this angle of it,
Uh-huh.
and just doink, and that was it. So stuff still happens. It's life, and that's Tarkov, and you get one tap
Mhm.
sometimes, but yeah, I think there's like, it's that kind of like bootstrapping thing, right? It's like you start with very little, you try to like min max it. As you gain an experience, you have to like kind of like match your gear to your experience level, right? It's like the more
Yeah.
comfortable you get, it's kind of all goes hand in hand. It's like, you don't, there's no point really running more gear until you have more knowledge, but until you have the knowledge, then you're going to die because your gear's rubbish. And so it's like you slowly scale it up, and that also goes with like the general economy of your own PMC too.
Mhm.
It's an interesting one. I think like I'm focusing so much more this wipe on the two different sides of it. It's just like your PMC in the game as your character and then the stash value you have, and then you as your own personal
The
skills,
person,
which is the
yeah.
thing I think is important, and I sometimes lose track of for sure.
Yeah. Labs was supposed to be the next map for me to learn, but I switched to reserve because, well, it's labs, so that would be the next phase for me is
Yeah, I've seen
officially
a lot
learning
of
labs.
people complaining about labs, like especially the guys who are really good and mained
Yeah.
labs for a long time. There's a lot of them who are not playing labs anymore, which is a bit like it kind of puts you off, right? You think, maybe I won't bother. A lot of them playing shoreline apparently. Um,
See, I've heard interchange is the new because you get 1 or 2 graphics cards, and that's like 3 mil, you know?
yes,
Like,
it is true.
labs could never really compete with that, I don't think.
Yeah.
And then you gotta pay the fee, which is more expensive now, it's like 300.
Mhm.
Because I
Mhm.
saw on Twitter too, there's a there's a craft in the hideout that uses 12 labs key cards. I think it's for a purple labs
Yeah, I think it's
card,
purple. Yeah.
and so that's, like, driven the price of labs cards up, so they're, like, super expensive, and then yeah,
Yeah.
anyways, it's a whole 'nother story, but
Yeah. It's a weird one. It's a weird one because like everybody kind of starts on customs. Like it's funny. I've like gone through a love hate relationship with customs. I think, but
yes, I hate customs now.
you
I
hate
hate
customs
it.
now. Oh, I love customs now. I actually really like it now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
See,
like
I
I
liked it at
wasn't
the start, but
sure.
now I hate it.
I wasn't sure when I kind of have never hated customs. I've
Mhm.
always just like I was quite scared of like the choke points when I first started playing because I didn't know
Yeah.
about any of this stuff. It's so weird how the maps feel so different when you've like played for like a couple of years or
Yeah.
something. It's like I remember like there's the feeling of like claustrophobia in the map in general, just being like, oh, there's a wall here, and like how do I get through? And like I'm stuck. Like it's just like so trapped. And to be fair, this was before the expansion, and that did open it out quite a lot. And I was so torn when they released that expansion in the first place. But I actually really like the way the map flows now. I think it's good. I think it's really really good. I like it.
Yeah.
And yeah, as I said, it's kind of like hotspots that are like disconnected by with enough space between them so that you're not all just like stumbling over each other all the time. But you kind of know where people are going to be. That's what I quite like about it. It's like you sort of have like a after a bit you get like a good game sense as where like people are likely to be, even if you haven't heard them or seen them. And I guess even that thing of just like hearing the ambient sounds in the map and being like, okay, that's over there. It's probably this person fighting this person. They're probably in
Yes.
these positions, that kind of thing. And and that kind of like makes me really like customs because I guess like it's funny because everybody starts with customs and a lot of
Yeah.
people just continue to play customs later on. It's not like the noob map or anything. It's I like the fact that people still do play it quite a bit.
Mhm.
What would you say is your favorite map then out of all of them?
Interchange.
It's interchange. Interesting.
I mean, it's probably because I have the most playtime on it,
Yeah.
and even before graphics cards went up in price, I've always thought interchange was, like, the best way to make, or the best map to make money.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it probably is true. It probably is true. I'm like kind of for me, it's sort of a. I feel like you can't really say factory. I wouldn't say that factory is like necessary. It's weird, like 'cause factory is not really a map. Factory is more like I don't
Yeah.
know. It's a way of
It
life.
gets a special
It
mention for
does. It's not
sure, for
really
me as
like
well.
yeah, it doesn't feel I feel like if there's a list, you can't really put factory as number one. I think it can only go in like joint. And I do think it is actually probably joint between customs and factory for me now at this point.
Mhm.
I really want to say shoreline, but I'm not good enough at resort. I would say like my number one top probably is like the outside of shoreline. Like there's nothing there. There's no loot really or anything. But I just
Yeah.
like the way that the fights develop. Like I genuinely
Yeah.
like the
It's
exterior fighting,
interesting.
and it's one of the only maps where there's enough. It's quite funny actually because people think about woods as a sniping map, and like yeah, it is. That's fine. But shoreline has a lot of open areas that are actually much wider and much fewer trees than anything else. Right? There's quite a lot of woods, and I don't know whether you've noticed this when you're playing woods that you end up in like close range engagements 50% of the time at least because you both don't see each other. until you're right next to each other. And then you're just like, oh God. And everybody's got like, some huge scope on it. Ends up being some like hilarious point blank motion battle. One guy trying to complete Tarkov Shooter 8 and someone else who's trying to get like Shooter Born in Heaven.
Yeah.
It ends up being quite hilarious. But like Shoreline, I've had some like decent long range fights, things like my kind of old haunts, sort of like somewhere on the west side ridge by power station, and you can like look up to where the pylons are and like that kind of thing. And I don't know, I like the way that the map plays out, but I'm not good enough at resort to really call it my number one, which is why customs tied with like factory is kind of like a side note. Has to go at the top, I think. But it is so closely followed by Shoreline. I just like it. I really do. I just like it. And so then,
I guess to like maybe we should like conclude on yeah, like what would be like our final thoughts on how to improve on a map?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll
learn a new map. Yes, please.
I guess I'll go first then, I suppose. So it's like stage one, like look at the map on the
Pull
wiki.
up the map on your second monitor or
on
phone.
the second monitor. Look at it on the wiki. Play it in offline mode. Understand the extraction points and how they work, because otherwise you just like there's barely any point in playing, right? And then it's learning the spawns, understanding kind of where people can get to within the first couple of minutes, and where the hot spots are on the map that people go to. Because what you're going to do really is just like look at the map. You're going to take every spawn. You're going to draw lines in your head from every spawn point. And this is kind of like interchange is like literally just like spawns around the outside and everybody just straight into the middle, which is quite nuts. So you'd like figure that out. And then it's kind of things like, okay, well, now that I have this knowledge about where people are going to be, like, can I cut someone off if I know where I think they might be going from their spawn point? Can I then intercept them and kill them? And that's kind of like where I have often contrasted Tarkov to like a game of chess in the opening, right? There's only so many set moves that you can do at the start, and it kind of you can kill somebody right at the beginning if you do the right combination, which definitely happens a lot. But yeah, so like figuring out the spawns is probably the next one, and then spawns combined with hotspots, and then after that, and then it's just general map knowledge, I think, and like trying to learn like the buildings, the angles, hidden caches, as people have said in chat, which are important for making money and that kind of thing. And I guess that's the point I'm at with interchange for me, is just kind of like need to learn like more of the minutiae. I don't know all of the routes and how to get from place A to place B. Like if you just dumped me somewhere and said, right, go to this place, I wouldn't be able to tell you the quickest route. Right? And until you have like that down and it's just kind of muscle memory where to go, then you don't have like the fluidity to be able to like outplay people, and that makes it really tough.
Yeah, well said. I think the biggest takeaways from this experience is baby steps / moderation. I'm even noticing on my experience on reserve is that I've died to spawns, therefore I'm more aware, or I've killed people at spawns because I've died from those spawns, and I know that I can rush this area to get this loot, but then from there I don't really have all that other foundational work of the map flow and map knowledge, so I'm still like kind of fumbling my way to the extract. If I may get caught off guard, that's kind of the experience. And the second thing I would say is run budget on when you're learning a new map. Don't bring out your best gear.
Yeah,
because most likely you're going to die. It's something that I just I took for granted. I didn't even think about. So when I go labs next wipe, I'm going to just come in with a 5.7 and a P.A.K.A. Wish me luck.
I think that's also something that like I was doing as well, in terms of like taking in budget gear and just try to take in like short range stuff, because like you're probably not going to be shooting long range if you don't know the angles. So I've ended up, I don't know, there's like sometimes I was just taking in like some really, really cheap stuff with like a EKP strapped on the side, and that's it, just to try and figure things out. 6B 43 TM, whatever it's called, the Ragman, the Ragman rig, the classic, the one everyone uses.
Yeah,
that guy, maybe a Ratnik helmet, any old gun with BT in it. To be honest, I don't really use that setup. I use things like the MP7 with FMJ and that kind of thing, because I think it's better. But You know, just something that's like effective, cheap, simple. You're not gonna cry over that kit. You're probably gonna get half of it back.
Yep, for sure. You'll probably get the armor back unless the
Yeah,
scav loots it, but I mean, yeah,
the 6Bs, like
it's
they come
just
back all the time. Those rigs, they come
yeah.
back constantly because they're like horrible to repair. They don't have any 2-slot like 2x2s in them, so they're just awful to put stuff in.
Mhm.
And they barely save any space, and they're also like heavy as hell. And
Yep.
so they just come back all the time. It's come back all the time. Yeah, and that's it, right? You just like you just start running it. You start running it, and don't worry about the losses.
Yeah. Treat
And
everything as a learning experience. 'Cause
exactly, you're paying
dying
for
is
experience.
learning.
You pay for experience. You pay for experience, and you set your kit up so that you can run it multiple times. There's actually
Yeah.
something like there's like very quick point on like I've like an idea of something that I'm probably going to put out, and it's
Mhm.
I have like a bit of experience from my uni days of playing poker, and I actually do think there's quite a lot of crossover. I want to make a
Ooh,
whole thing about the crossover because it's a bit like, you know, if you're going in with a
I
kit,
see.
you need to
Yeah.
be able to run that kit like 10 times without going bankrupt, right? And that's like very similar to having, you know, you only play with so much money out of the pot that you have that you've got allocated to playing the game because you can, you know, you can lose like 10 hands. There's actually quite a lot of similarities. The more I thought about it, the more I was like, "Oh, this is a fun idea." So I'm kind of like that's like a bit of a work in progress, but I think it's useful. I think there's some useful takeaways from you know gambling games in Tarkov because it has a very similar
Aspects of it,
profile
yeah.
in some ways. There's actually one other thing that I think is really interesting. Probably one of the most interesting things about this whole concept is that in a lot of games you can see what you did wrong. In games like Tarkov, when you get shot and you don't know where from, it makes it hard to connect the learning curve
Yes.
up. And sometimes because of the way that like ammo works or desync or whatever you want to call it, like there's lots of different factors. Sometimes you
Mhm.
can do all the right things and die anyway. And that's exactly the same in like, you know, if you have a great hand and you make all the right decisions and you know, the decision that you make in the long run has a positive value attributed to it, but sometimes you lose anyway.
Mm.
And that breaks a lot of people because it breaks the traditional feedback loop of I do the right thing and I get rewarded for it. And Tarkov actually has exactly the same game loop, which is that you do the right
Interesting.
thing and you most of the time you will win and sometimes you don't. And it's like the same. It's the same concept. And I think that it's there's something valuable there. But anyway, that's for another time. It's for another time. Just something to think about.
How are we, doing on time? When do we get started?
Couple of minutes. Oh, what is my 58 minutes. 58 minutes.
Okay. Well,
So
should we wrap it up or
I'm happy to wrap it up. I think that's kind of like
yeah.
neatly packages what we had to say. I'm
I just feel
happy.
bad because we still haven't I was like last episode, I was like, let's make a real effort to talk about the weapon spotlight or
Oh
you know
god,
the
I even forgot. I actually forgot
see?
completely. I genuinely forgot completely. Like maybe it's even worth just doing it as its whole thing. I don't know. We need to think about
Yeah.
how to do that to be honest, because it's again, it's probably one that you think like, oh well, that's probably just going to be a little segment or something, and then you spend like an hour and 20 minutes talking non-stop about gun modding.
Which
Um,
honestly is kind of what I thought this was gonna be, but it turned into something better, so it's
okay,
good.
good,
Yeah.
good. I'm pleased. I'm pleased. I always love to exceed expectations.
Yeah. Cool, guys.
Cool.
Well, that wraps it up. We'll have this upload on YouTube on Monday morning if you didn't catch it all here live. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Cool. Catch you
Peace.
later.